What if I told you that everything you've been taught about effort and struggle is an elaborate lie? What if the path to total manifestation, to inexhaustible wealth and ultimate peace, requires not sweat and epic battles, but radical stillness? We have lived for eons trapped in the illusion of forced effort, believing that brute force is the only lever that moves the universe. That belief is the yoke of the uninitiated, the paradigm that drains your energy and stifles your potential. Today, that paradigm is broken. Today, we will activate knowledge that was forbidden and hidden for millennia, sealed in the cryptic archives of ancient Egyptian wisdom, the Thoth technique for achieving everything without doing anything. This is not an exercise in lazy passivity, it is an act of vibrational sovereignty. What is about to be revealed is the most advanced mental alchemy, a hermetic principle that dissolves resistance and aligns you with the unstoppable current of the cosmos. If you've reached this point in your existence where you feel like you've tried every technique, every visualizations, every ritual, and still hit an invisible wall, it's because you're missing the master key, the gnosis of non-action. You are about to experience a metamorphosis in your esoteric perception. You will cease to be the exhausted swimmer struggling against the tide and become the master surfer who uses the cosmic wave to your advantage. I don't promise you fleeting tricks, but rather a profound transmutation of being, the revelation that the universe is mental and that true mastery lies not in external control, but in internal attunement. Throughout this meeting, we will reveal the essence of Wu Wei, the Taoist art of effortless action, reinterpreted through the hermetic prism of Thoth. You will understand why rigidity breaks like oak, while fluidity survives like bamboo. We will reveal the secret of right action, that minimal, almost invisible movement that acts as a lever to anchor in the physical accords already established in the mental plane. We will unlock the codes of the traffic light system, your internal GPS, so that you stop acting when the light is red, resistance, and only move in perfect resonance, green light. The promise is clear. If you apply this axiom of flow, your external reality will magically readjust, not because of your struggle, but because of the perfection of your internal vibration. Prepare for the knowledge that frees you from the need to struggle. This is your final cycle of futile effort. If you are ready to abandon the paradigm of scarcity and tension and reclaim your inheritance as a conscious co-creator, your first act of sovereignty must be a decree of intention. Click like right now to seal your commitment to the flow. Subscribe to the channel to ensure you don't miss a single fragment of this great work of transmutation. And, most importantly, anchor your intention in the ether. Declare your will to the cosmos and your own higher consciousness. Commenting here and now, I seek the truth. The forbidden technique of Thoth is based on a foundational axiom. The universe does not need to be pushed, only tuned in. Effort, from this ancient and esoteric perspective, is not a virtue, but rather the palpable evidence of a vibrational dissonance between causal consciousness and its material manifestation. When the adept strives, he demonstrates that he still perceives reality as external and separate, falling into the illusion of duality where the finite self must struggle against the infinite whole. Thoth, the scribe of the gods, revealed that true creation occurs in the absolute silence of non-action, the cosmic Wu Wei, where will, Ketha, manifests directly as form, Malkuth, without interference from the anxious ego of Tifereth. This alignment requires the purification of the internal logos. Your word must be so devoid of doubt that it acts as an unbreakable command to the ether. The resistance you experience in the physical world, the wall that seems to stop your projects, is the echo of your own mental indecision, the friction generated by contradictory thoughts. To dissolve effort, dissolve the belief that struggle is necessary, The goal is not to move mountains with brute force, but to tune into the frequency of the mountain already moved, allowing the time matrix to automatically reconfigure itself in your favor. It is the cessation of judgment and the total acceptance of the flow of Ma'at that activates this invisible lever, achieving maximum energetic efficiency through minimum observable movement. The true secret of alignment, that premise of achieving everything effortlessly, rests in the internal transmutation of the center of gravity of consciousness. We must move from the hemisphere of need and lack to the hemisphere of sufficiency and anticipated gratitude, a state the ancients called the abode of certainty. The universal flow does not respond to requests based on fear, but to declarations based on sovereignty. The master of this technique does not seek results. He is the result manifesting. This state is recognized by the simultaneous appearance of synchronicities, events, people, and resources that converge without active manipulation. They are the messengers of the universe, confirming your attunement to the frequency of the fulfilled desire. The greatest temptation for the initiate is to take the reins again for fear of inaction, but it is precisely in trusting abandonment where alchemical power resides. Brute force is a signature of the limited rational mind, which operates under the paradigm of sequential cause and effect. Flow, however, operates in quantum causality, where pure intention collapses the wave of possibilities into instantaneous certainty. Learning to differentiate between the ego's impulse, which demands noisy action, and the higher self's intuition, which suggests the minimal, just movement, is the key that unlocks the forbidden door. If effortless action is the only true action, who is the actor actually executing this minimal movement? The answer lies not in the self you know, but in a hidden shadow that dwells between dimensions, the true sovereign from whom we emanate. The answer to the identity of the silent actor lies not in the surface consciousness that takes credit or blame, but in the recognition of the transpersonal self, that fraction of universal consciousness that has chosen to experience density, but which remains perennially anchored to the flow of the Tao. This entity, which some Hellenistic mystics called the daimon, or the Egyptians knew as the aligned Kai, is the true sovereign of minimal and perfect movement. Wu Wei demands the voluntary suppression of Zhi, discursive and analytical knowledge, so that the Xin, the intuitive heart-mind, can tune into the primordial frequency. When the vessel of being is emptied of the noise of planning and expectation, the current of life, the Tao, flows through it without resistance, making action not a forced execution, but a resonant manifestation. Movement, therefore, is not initiated by the linear will of the ego, but arises as the only possible and optimal response to the present moment, freeing the individual from the tyranny of choice and the subsequent karmic burden. Effortless action is, in essence, the surrender of the small will to the great will, allowing the deepest intention, that which vibrates in the core of essential desire and not in its superficial form, to configure the field of manifestation instantaneously and without friction. This is the state where doing and being merge into an indivisible operative unit, the mechanism by which the physical body executes perfect non-action involves the total elimination of interference, the concept of ziran, or spontaneous naturalness. The practitioner's body becomes the personal axis mundi, a central channel, or the sushumna of the Vedic traditions, that has been cleared of the energetic knots generated by fear and control. When this axis is unblocked, D, the inherent virtue or power acquired by living in consonance with the Tao, is activated, and the universe begins to move the environment in response to the observer's inner stillness. It is a paradigm shift. Reality is not something to be pushed or modified with external effort, but something to be allowed and reflected from within. Contrast this with the frenetic energy of Western goal-seeking, which is linear, temporal, and consumes vast amounts of life energy in the struggle against inertia. Wu Wei, on the other hand, operates in a cyclical and timeless causality, where the action is so precise and minimal that it seems invisible. The real work is not in lifting the load, but in becoming so light that the load lifts itself through the resonance of the environment. The wisdom of Wu Wei goes back to primitive metaphors, the most recurrent being that of water, described by Lao Tzu. Nothing in the world is softer and weaker than water, but when it comes to attacking the hard and strong, nothing surpasses it. Water does not exert brute force. It yields, adapts to the shape of the vessel, and yet its persistence and fluidity eventually erode the most solid mountain. This is the key. The strength of Wu Wei lies in intelligent yielding, not in stubborn resistance. Consider Chuang Tzu's famous tale about the butcher who, when butchering the ox, never dulled his knife because he followed the hollows and natural lines of the bone structure without imposing his own will on the matter. His action was intuitive, guided by the intrinsic rhythm of the ox's life, not by muscle power. Inaction, in this context, does not mean laziness or inert passivity. It means the utmost precision of movement, where the energy that would have been expended in the friction of fighting is redirected toward the keen discernment of the optimal moment for deployment. Effort is replaced by inevitability. The great antagonist of Wu Wei is Wei, forced action, driven by the need to prove the existence of the ego. Minda Wei is the signature of the detached mind that believes chaos can only be tamed through management and manipulation. This action generates friction, entropy, and fundamentally, disharmony with the flow of the Tao. The practice of effortless action is, therefore, a rigorous exercise in internal alchemy. It seeks to transmute the lead of compulsive activity, the nervous, noisy response to fear, into the gold of spontaneous movement, guided by deep intuition. This requires a radical silence, not only of external speech, but of internal judgment, obsessive planning, and anxious anticipation. The initiate must become a limpid mirror, neither critic nor actor, simply the space through which the event unfolds. When the struggle to make things happen ceases, the truth is revealed that things have always been happening perfectly, and the observer only had to align his or her perspective with that underlying perfection. The unmistakable sign that the initiate has entered the stream of Wu Wei is the feeling of profound existential lightness, the absence of anxiety about the outcome, and the experience of ongoing inevitability. It is a state of profound sovereignty, where the individual no longer feels at the mercy of external circumstances, but rather recognizes that the outside world is the immediate and undistorted reflection of their internal state of alignment. The need for effort originates in the fundamental belief in separation from the source. Effortless action is the dissolution of that belief. It is the realization that the source need not strive to create, and if the self operates as a pure extension of the source, neither should it. Manifestation becomes an organic consequence, not a fought for goal. The master has stopped seeking the will of the Tao. He is the will in motion. If inaction is the ultimate action, dismantling the concept of temporal struggle and sequential cause and effect, what implications does this state have for the very structure of perceived time and the irreversibility of fate? If flow is instantaneous, then where do the limits of causality as we know it lie? The answer lies in the understanding that causality, as understood by the lay mind, is a function of linear perception, a temporal matrix woven by resistance. The Hermetic principle of rhythm describes not only the oscillation of manifested cycles, but the constant breathing of the universe within the eternal now. When the initiate operates in non-action, they cease to feed the pendulum of the desired future, allowing the ebb, the phase of apparent stillness or non-manifestation, to be as perfect and necessary as the flow, the phase of active manifestation. The struggle over destiny dissolves when it is understood that destiny is not a fixed point in the distance, but the vibrational quality of the present instant. Time is perceived as irreversible only because consciousness clings to the identity of the past, projecting that rigidity onto a future that must therefore honor the previous vibrational inertia. By surrendering to the instantaneous flow of the Tao or creative will, the observer transcends the field of sequential necessity, accessing a realm where cause and effect coexist simultaneously, mere poles of the same reality. This is the mastery of the existential tide, where time is plastic and irreversibility is a vibrational choice. Manifesting that effort is the only true generator of the separation and delay between intention and its form. This mastery over temporal plasticity is the crucial application point of the principle of polarity. Predestination and free will are not opposing forces fighting for control of human becoming, but rather extremes of a single spectrum of potentiality. Predestination is simply the inevitable resonance of the frequency that the being radiates at any given moment. If the internal frequency is low and dense, laden with guilt, fear, or limitation, external manifestation, destiny, will be rigidly determined by those low resonances. The initiate, however, uses the law of polarity to actively transmute their internal state, moving their consciousness toward the opposite pole, unwavering faith, intrinsic abundance, perfect alignment with Source. This instantaneous internal transmutation negates the need for external causality to pay the vibrational debts of the previous state, for vibrational identity has fundamentally changed in the now, without the need for temporal sequence. The irreversibility of destiny is an illusion maintained by the inertia of psychic identity. Changing the pole is rewriting the existential contract in real time. Effortless action, Wu Wei, thus becomes the most efficient transmutation mechanism, as it avoids generating new resistant inertia and allows the new pole to establish itself without friction. Hermetic mastery resides in the ability to be the desired destination frequency, rather than searching for it through the time sequence. The fundamental corollary of this operation lies in the first principle, mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. If the cosmos is a mental construct of the all, and individual consciousness is an operative fractal of that universal mind, then the manipulation of causality and destiny is not a struggle against physical or temporal forces, but a precise internal restructuring of the psychic field. The initiate who masters Wu Wei has perfected the art of mental stillness, allowing the universal mind to operate through him without the discordant interference of the limiting ego. Destiny is nothing more than the holographic projection of the observer's predominant state of mind. When the hermeticist deliberately alters his internal polarity, using the will to ascend the mental scale through the law of vibration, the external universe has no choice but to instantly reorganize itself to reflect this new psychic architecture. The delay between intention and manifestation is simply the time it takes for consciousness to free itself from the fundamental belief in separation, the belief that sustains the illusion of temporal sequence. The irreversibility of destiny becomes a function of the rigidity of belief, the fluidity of destiny, of the total malleability of manifesting faith. The practical application of these principles therefore requires unparalleled mastery of the law of vibration. We understand that everything is in perpetual motion, and that the manifestation of a new destiny is simply the conscious adjustment of one's own vibrational frequency to the desired channel of emission, ignoring the discord of lower frequencies. The master of vibration does not combat lower circumstances, but rather raises his or her own tonal note until the discordant circumstance can no longer coexist on that same resonant plane. This is intimately intertwined with the gender principle. which governs the generation and creation of all manifestation. The masculine aspect, directed will, projects the immaculate seed of pure intention. The feminine aspect, receptivity, the stillness of Wu Wei, provides the fertile environment, the effortless alignment that allows the seed to germinate without being stifled by anxiety or doubt, the friction of the linear ego. Effortless action is the perfect synthesis of gender. Clear, directive intention, masculine, manifesting through total receptivity and fluid alignment, feminine, creating a destiny that emerges organically without the forced imposition of matter upon the mind. This is the true meaning of inner alchemy, the sacred union of inner opposites to generate a higher reality. At the apex of this understanding, the adept recognizes that the dissolution of the irreversibility of destiny is an inevitable byproduct of established internal sovereignty. It is not a matter of altering the past or forcing the future with titanic effort, but of operating from a timeless reference point where only pure potentiality exists, the field of being. Destiny becomes the harmonic resonance of the higher self, no longer a forced karmic chaining, but an active and continuous choice of vibratory pole. The key lies in the ability to maintain this alignment without lapsing into the inertia of old mental patterns, ensuring that effortless action does not become mere passivity or stagnation. It requires a constant source of refined energy, one that the Kybalion only hints at in its superficial treatment of the mental plane. If the universal mind is the source of all, and perfect alignment eliminates friction and temporal effort, where then does the true storehouse of psychic energy reside? Dynamis, cruder, capable of sustaining a perpetual state of Wu Wei in the face of the immensity of cosmic projections. And what does its total control over the genesis of new mental universes imply? The true storehouse of Dynamis lies not in the mere superficial containment of thought, but in direct, conscious interaction with the primordial ether, that pre-vibratory substance that the ancient Vedic rishis called Akasha, and the Hermetists identified as quintessence, the constitutive element of potentiality. The universe, far from being a mere set of random oscillations, is the audible manifestation of a generative silence, the fundamental note that sustains all creation. Every subatomic particle, every spiral galaxy, is an intricate harmonic within the great cosmic symphony, whose invisible conductor is the one will. When the adept succeeds in silencing the dissonant frequencies generated by ego friction, that incessant psychic noise, they can descend to the vibratory core that underlies all form, the 0 point of existence. It is in this vortex of absolute stillness that energy reveals itself to be limitless, for it has not yet been polarized or consumed in the generation of the illusory reality of dense forms. Sustaining Wu Wei, in its purest expression, requires consciously accessing this source of potential energy, allowing the raw dynamis to rise through the internal channels, transmuting the low frequencies of need and desire into the high frequency of pure, selfless intention. This attunement is not passive, but an intense activity of internal reordering, a micro-orchestration of the subtle bodies until a profound understanding is achieved that vibration is not a mere effect, but the primordial cause, the Word made flesh. The concept of Wu Wei, historically misinterpreted in the West as simple inaction or stoic passivity, is essentially the manifestation of perfect resonance with the frequency of the Tao, the desired vibration that orders chaos. If all manifested reality operates under the immutable law of correspondence, and then the attunement involved demands that the microcosm of the self must harmonically reflect the macro frequency of the universe without distortion. To attune to the specific vibration one wishes to manifest, be it health, abundance, or enlightenment, the initiate must first identify and embrace the immutable frequency of their higher self, the one that resonates with essential truth, rigorously stripping themselves of acquired frequencies that act as static. Fears, inherited judgments, and dense karmic memory. This act of stripping is the true alchemical purification of the light body, burning away the vibratory dross in the furnace of the heart. Attunement is facilitated and sustained through the conscious and masterful use of breath, prana or pneuma, which acts as the internal tuning fork, regulating the intensity, quality, and wavelength of internal oscillation. A deep, rhythmic, and sustained breath not only oxygenates the tissues, but forces the electromagnetic fields of the heart and mind into crystalline coherence. When the heart, the impregnable seat of the higher will, and the mind, the vehicle of focused intention, beat in coherent unison, a stable toroidal field is generated that acts as a powerful holographic emitter and receiver, cancelling out all dissonance and resonantly attracting that whose frequency is identical to the effortlessly held intention, maintaining the constant flow of Wu Wei. The methodology for sustaining this high vibration perpetually transcends superficial meditative techniques and simplistic positive thinking. It requires total mastery over the nadis, the 72,000 energy channels, and the chakras, the 7 main centers of toroidal transformation. The attunement work is not merely mental or emotional, but deeply somatic and etheric. The pineal gland, often seen only as a mystical third eye, is actually a biological piezoelectric transducer of incredible precision that converts the cosmic frequencies of the Akashic field into bioelectrical impulses understandable by the central nervous system. To maintain the desired vibration, the adept must keep the pineal gland decalcified and active, achieving the definitive unification of the telluric and transformative energy of the base, Kundalini Shakti, with the pure consciousness of the Sahasrara, the crown. This fusion generates a stable and self-sustaining internal frequency, eliminating dependence on external stimuli or favorable circumstances to maintain a state of grace and alignment. The ancient sages of the Egyptian mystery schools and Tibetan orders codified this process through specific body postures, energetic sealing mudras, and sacred vocalizations, mantras. These were not simple prayers, but precise vibrational keys intended to reorganize the crystalline geometry of molecular water within the body, transforming the biological vehicle into a perfectly calibrated resonator, capable of modulating the universal symphony at the will of the being. When vibrational attunement is sustained at this level of mastery, the initiate operates from a state of inalienable vibrational sovereignty. This implies a radical reversal of causality. External reality no longer exerts control or defines the internal state. On the contrary, the internal state, the sustained frequency, dictates the precise manifestation of the surrounding reality. Destiny, understood as a pre-designed and immutable trajectory due to accumulated karmic momentum, completely dissolves because the adept has ascended to a frequency plane where those lower limiting laws no longer apply. The universe is then perceived not as a rigid environment, but as an infinite sea of overlapping waves of possibility, and Wu Wei becomes the perfectly oriented sail that catches the wind of intention without fighting the current or the inertia of the past. Personal reality tunnels, that is, the selective, coherent perception of the world we experience, are created and sustained exclusively by the dominant frequency of being. By maintaining the desired vibration, be it the frequency of unconditional abundance, radiant health, or unalterable peace, uninterruptedly and seamlessly, the cosmos is compelled by the inexorable law of resonant attraction to manifest the physical structures, relationships, and events that correspond exactly to that same wavelength. The adept no longer needs to ask or force. The adept simply is that frequency, and that state of being is the most powerful action there is, actionless action. The highest expression of this vibrational mastery leads to the transcendence of the frequency source duality. By achieving perfect attunement to the desired frequency, which, ultimately, is the fundamental frequency of unity and pure consciousness. The individual being intrinsically merges with the cosmic orchestra itself. The quest is no longer to tune in, but to be the attunement embodied. This state dissolves the distinction between the observer emitting the wave and the wave observed. The adept becomes the incarnated vibratory principle, the logos manifested in flesh and blood, capable of modulating reality from its origin. But even this fusion with the omnipresent symphony presents a crucial paradox that the great Zen and Taoist masters contemplated until the end of their days. If all perceptible vibration arises inexorably from absolute silence, the zero void, and Wu Wei seeks maximum efficiency through perfect resonance, what exactly happens when the resonance becomes so immaculate that the wave nullifies itself in its own perfection and returns to silence, to the uncreated origin? Is total and final dissolution the ultimate goal of the great work? Or is there a master frequency, a specific primordial tone that must be actively sustained, even in oneness, in order to co-create eternally without returning to primordial nothingness? The next level of understanding requires investigating the veil of Maya and the nature of the projected hologram, the mirror of the mind that converts silence into sound and sound into dense form. The veil of Maya is not a prison, but the tangible manifestation of the fundamental law of mentalism, phenomenal reality, that vast, dense illusion that quantum physics begins to reveal as an interconnected vibrational field is nothing more than a hologram projected by the universal mind. This mind, the Plotinian nous or Supreme Brahman, operates through the duality of attention and inattention. Material density arises from the temporary slowing of a pure intention that projects itself toward limitation in order to experience itself in a differentiated way. Every act of perception is, in essence, an act of co-creation. The observer, by projecting their consciousness, endows the wave spectrum with solidity. The individual, mirror of the mind, the manas in the Vedic tradition, acts as a refracting prism that takes the white light of unitary consciousness and decomposes it into the rainbow of form. Understanding that atomic structure, crystalline geometry, and even the law of gravity are merely frozen mental configurations is the first step toward true dynamic Wu Wei. If reality is thought, mastery lies in the modulation of thought at its deepest level. The pure intention prior to verbal formulation. The initiate stops fighting the shadow projected on the wall of Plato's cave and directs his or her attention exclusively to the internal luminous source that generates the pattern. Mental alchemy requires the transmutation of limiting belief into the omnipresent certainty of mind. Wu Wei, often misinterpreted in the West as passivity or resigned inaction, is in reality the epitome of directed mental activity. It is not a state of inert quietism in the face of world events, but such an exquisite and receptive attunement to Lei, the cosmic ordering principle or Tao, that manifested action seems to arise spontaneously and effortlessly. This dynamic receptivity is the polar opposite of mental laziness. It demands a supreme level of inner concentration, a constant vigilance to discern the greater will from the egocentric impulses of the lower self. The inaction of Wu Wei is, strictly speaking, the inaction of the ego, allowing the torrent of the universal mind to flow through the purified channel of the adept. It is the sword that cuts effortlessly because it has anticipated the movement before the need for the cut becomes apparent. In terms of mentalism, the true Wu Wei master does not attempt to change external reality, the phenomenal projection, but rather modulates his own internal frequency, his fundamental mental posture, knowing that the projection must instantly adjust to the new mental matrix. It is the discipline of being the desired change rather than doing to force it. The act of manifestation is an inevitable consequence of internal alignment, a mathematical necessity in the universe, which is fundamentally a matrix of thought and calculation. The mental modulation that leads to dynamic wu-wei takes place at the deepest levels of underlying consciousness. The jivatma, that is in contact with the universal Akashic record, that vast repository of mental information, when the intention is held with sufficient purity, devoid of doubt and the emotional turbulence of the astral body, it becomes a magnetic archetype. This archetype begins to draw from the universal mind the frequencies necessary for its densification. Mentalism teaches that matter is thought in a state of low vibrational frequency, and therefore, the adept's work is to raise or lower the frequency of their intention until it resonates perfectly with the law they wish to manifest. The magician's action, then, is purely internal, clearing the mental channels to ensure that the emitted signal is sharp and unidirectional, like a focused laser. The famous Hermetic saying, "as above, so below," is not just a structural analogy, but a functional mechanism. The individual mind is a microcosm containing the codes of the universal mind. By modifying the internal code, the deep and sustained belief, the external universe, the manifestation, must, by vibratory necessity, reorganize to reflect the new mental pattern. This understanding of mental sovereignty is not a modern invention, but the cornerstone of the most ancient esoteric schools that achieved a profound understanding of the creative principle. The Stoics, although focused on practical ethics, practiced a containment mentalism, affirming that while they could not control external phenomena, relentless projection, they were absolutely masters of their internal mental reaction. This reaction, or prohairesis, is precisely the pivotal point where wu-wei is exercised. For the Gnostics, the material world was a creation of the demiurge, a lower or limited mind, and salvation lay in elevating consciousness, the nous, above this projected mental limitation. Taoist mentalism, Zhuangzi in particular, celebrates total fusion with the flow without imposing the ego's will, achieving the state of empty heart and clear mind that allows for perfect remorseless action. The alchemical transmutation of lead into gold is not the transformation of a physical metal, but the ascent from the dense mind, lead, conditioned by the hologram, to the enlightened mind, gold, aware that it is the projector. The universe obeys the pattern the mind establishes, and liberation lies in the discipline of maintaining that pattern of unchanging perfection, even in the midst of projected chaos. The real challenge of mentalism and dynamic wu-wei is to avoid the trap of total dissolution, which was the question posed at the beginning of the journey. If the goal was simply to return to absolute silence, final nirvana understood as the nullification of form, the path would be passivity and complete withdrawal from the cosmic game. However, the adept who embraces co-creation understands that the primordial tone in is not zero, but the vibration that sustains the one in harmonious manifestation. This state requires active and constant, yet frictionless effort, not brute force, but unwavering abiding in pure consciousness that sustains form without attachment to it. Wu-wei, at its most dynamic, is the state of the bodhisattva, actively participating in the mental hologram, acting with impeccable efficiency, but without the illusion of being the separate individual actor. It is the universal mind acting through a personality free of ego filters. Holding the master frequency is the continuous meditation on the axiom, "I am the mind, and this is my manifestation," ensuring that the projection is always harmonious because the mental source is. But the mind, though universal, is not monolithic in its individualized expression. If the entire universe arises from this mental process, how do we explain the persistence of error, shadow, and suffering, which seem to emanate not from pure consciousness, but from the buried reservoirs of the collective and personal subconscious? acting as automatic recorders of limitation. What, then, is the secret anatomy of the shadow that sabotages the perfect projection of mentalism? And how is its power of distortion extracted? We have crossed the threshold, understanding that the universal mind is not an abstract concept, but the living infrastructure of reality. Enlightenment is the practical realization that we are, individually, the sovereign operators of this infrastructure. Mastery resides not in inert stillness, but in the flawless dance between 0 and 1, between the unmanifested source and the harmonic projection of form. This is the awakening of the cosmic bodhisattva, acting without attachment, projecting without error. The final synthesis is this: we are the law, but if the mind is the only cause and the only effect, if our essence is perfect, what unconscious mental vestiges or ancestral loyalties continue to sabotage the temple of projection, keeping us anchored in the distorted reflection of yesterday? Wisdom is a stream that dries up if it doesn't flow. Now that you have received this frequency, your service is to expand it. Perform an act of cosmic service. Share this video immediately with those seeking true projection. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and activate the sacred notification bell. This action seals your commitment to the hierarchy of light, securing your place in the upcoming revelations. But the synthesis is not complete. The adjoining chamber, which contains the secret anatomy of the shadow and the method for dismantling the subconscious recorders, awaits you. Do not delay your ascent. Cosmic time is precise, and the energetic door closes for those who hesitate. Immediate action is the master's signature. Click now. Transcendence is the only law.